Well, David's there. David's there.
Well, we're missing the, I still don't know what John's first name is.
Kieran.
Good.
Is it?
Yep.
Hello and welcome to the January meeting of the RSU 25 school board. You all please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, would you be kind enough to take the attendance?
Yes, Mr. Foster,
I am here.
Mr. Burgess,
I am here.
Miss Foster,
Present.
perfect timing. Mr. Frazier,
Here.
Mr. Claire. Here. Ms. Asbury. Ms. Rickman
Yes.
and Mr. Koff. So we have two board members who are absent this evening. We do have enough for a quorum. We may proceed with our business.
And there is a detour on Route 15. So I don't know if that's affecting.
No,
There has been an accident on Route 15, but the two who aren't in attendance we knew beforehand. This is the time for public participation. If you would like to participate publicly, you may email us for public comment at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. This is the time that we have to give general comments to the board. If you'd like to comment on a specific agenda item, we can allow comment at those agenda times, but this is the time for just generalized comment. Are there any comments that we've received?
in a second. I'll get down there. I have no comments yet electronically.
Then as we will keep that open for time, but as we wait, we will see if there are any adjustments to the agenda.
We do have adjustments to the agenda. I ask you to please add item L9, election of officers. It's an annual event we do in January. For leaving it off the original agenda.
You mean I'm not baby doc? I'm just trying.
Well,
I don't know if you can hear me, but I have no audio.
Of the solar energy credit purchase from a,
Jim, you want to start over introducing Rob? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I just got audio back. I haven't had audio for 5 minutes or so.
okay, do you support the minutes, David?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, now good. I'm gonna try again. Good evening, Rob. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Jim, can you hear me now?
Now, Rob, yeah, a little bit of a delay, so. I just
Okay.
did to talk to you about all these blowing terms, so. It's gonna
Okay.
be. So this is Rob. He's with Ameresco, and they have started the process of a project, a solar project here in Bucksport. He'll talk to you about the location, the opportunity for RSU 25 to become involved is here, and I'm going to leave it at that and let Rob tell all, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. Go ahead, Rob.
All right. Is there still the delay there, Jim?
Oh, you're good.
Oh, good now. Okay, great. Okay. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Go right ahead.
I am. I'm getting the message that it says disabled share, so I'm not.
My
you
tech
might
director
have
working diligently right now to allow that to happen.
Okay, great. Okay, there we go. Looks like that capability. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
And yes,
Okay, great. All right. Thank you again, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity to present our solar project and the net energy billing credits that we're proposing from the project as well. Appreciate the entire school RSU 25 committee and school community at this meeting, and look forward to presenting some of these details about our project. A little bit about Ameresco. We're a publicly traded energy services company. We have an international footprint. Our corporate office is in Framingham, Massachusetts, so we're based here in New England. We're developing, a few hundred megawatts of solar projects. We already have, over 300 completed, and that number is still tallying. You can see all the numbers here. We have more than 1,000 employees. We've been around for about 22 years. We're an owner operator of assets. There are a lot of companies that say that, but we're a company that means it, and our publicly traded status. Typically, publicly traded companies are looking to keep their assets, and we're no exception to that. So we have internal capabilities to develop projects and finance them and own and operate them. We do everything in house. So looking forward to discussing the specifics about the project here. The project is located in Bucksport, in the town of Bucksport, off of River Road. It's on the former Verso wood yard that was acquired by Pixel. We recently acquired the about 144 acre property from Pixel, and we plan on developing this part of the property that was formerly used as the log yard for processing wood materials and that sort of thing. So that's about a 32-acre footprint, over 14,000 panels. We anticipate about a little over 8 million kilowatt hours of electrons to be sent to the grid in year one. And, in Maine, these type of projects are looking for, basically partners, customers that are looking to purchase the net energy billing credits that are generated from the facility. So we send the energy to the grid, and then the credits are distributed to customers for reduction in energy costs. And I'll get into that a little bit further in the few slides upcoming here. But as I said, we currently own the property. We're paying property taxes on the property at this point. We do have an interconnection service agreement with Central Maine Power, and we're just going to interconnect directly adjacent to the property. Access is deeded into the property as well over the AIM development landfill. So, basically we have all the pieces put together on that. I went through a couple of planning board meetings, and there was a previous parcel that was considered. The town, thought that was not the right direction, so we went in a different direction on a industrially zoned parcel. So that's where we're at right now. And we, secured that local planning board approval. We've submitted the state applications. There is a what they call a Maine DEP site law application that's in the process of being approved. And the reason that the site law application had to be submitted is that there was an existing Maine DEP permit to operate the property as a wood yard and processing facility for the former mill that was adjacent to the property. So we submitted an amendment to that. We expect that approval will come in within the next couple of months. Could be, it could be 3 to 6 months. Not sure, but we expect that to go through, given that there's pretty limited impacts on the property. We're focusing on the disturbed areas of the property as well. We do have the interconnection service agreement with Central Maine Power. We also have to get ISO New England's approval, which is the basically the transmission operator in New England. There's pretty much if you have a solar project of this size in the interconnection queue in New England, or at least certainly in Maine, that the transmission operator is also approval is needed, and we expect that in a couple of months as well. So we're getting closer to getting all of our approvals for the project. So as I mentioned, local permitting. Hopefully we get the state permit by March. That could run into June potentially. So these timelines are kind of somewhat flexible at this point. A little bit uncertain, just given on that state permitting front. Again, we have the interconnection agreement in place. Once we get the state approval and we get ISO New England approval, we expect to proceed to procuring the equipment. Some of that equipment we have, in our warehouses, and some will, procure as well. So that will, take some time. We expect to commence construction shortly thereafter, with grading and civil construction, and then, proceeding to the nuts and bolts of the solar project after that. We expect to be substantially complete by the end of this year and have the project interconnected. That's a misprint, January 2023. So early next year, we expect to be online. So as far as the proposal to the RSU 25, we've had a few conversations, and we understand from those conversations that we've obtained some load data from the RSU 25, and I think I understand that the desire is to account for about 70% of the RSU 25's load. So that's accounted for here, which is about 7% of the total production, and so therefore we'll be seeking additional net energy billing off-takers as well, with a preference in the local community, certainly, and we hopefully see this as kind of a first step, and maybe other entities might express interest as well, including municipalities and perhaps the town as well. We're proposing a fixed discount rate on the medium general service rate over a 20-year PPA. The net energy billing program for each off-taker is a duration of 20 years. And, that fixed contract gives our financing partners a little more certainty. And, we balance sheet some of the project costs, but we also have financing partners that help us leverage some of the, basically the tax implications on it. There's some structures that, that are more financially attractive in that regard. So we just tied, the medium general service rate is, you may know is a rate that kind of fluctuates all over the place, and I'll show you some of that on the next table. But the discount will still remain the same at 24% throughout the entire duration of the PPA, and that medium general service rate is determined by the Maine PUC on an annual basis, and that usually comes out late in the year. This year, as you may have found out, those rates kind of jumped up quite a bit, and for a lot of different factors. But there's no upfront costs associated with this. We basically just produce the energy, sell you the power basically at that fixed discount, and you get credits supplied to your bill by Central Maine Power. So just to go into this a little bit more, this is a little more granular detail, but this column is basically what we're going to produce in total, and this degrades over time because the panels degrade about, rule of thumb is about 0.5%, so that production goes down. So we've calculated about 70% of the load for the RSU 25, which is roughly over 545,000 kilowatt hours per year. That would degrade along with the production as well. That would follow basically the production each year. And then there were 3 years that where the medium general service rates have kind of jumped around. It was basically 12.7 cents 2020, went down to 12.3 cents approximately, and then jumped up to 18.9 cents this year. We don't know what'll happen next year, but just to give you a kind of a rule of thumb savings calculation, that the average of those 3 values is here, and your fixed discount rate is this. So this would be what you would be credited by CMP each month for the number of kilowatt hours that are produced. And this number obviously fluctuates from year to year. This stays the same, and this number right here would be dependent on this number. So just roughly, the difference between this rate and this rate is what your savings will be. And as you can see, you get credited this, and we'll bill you this, and it's over a 3-cent difference. So I mean, you're potentially looking at maybe $40,000 in savings each year, potentially over $800,000 over the duration of the contract as well. So this is also dependent on a couple factors. There is a bill, I think, that's being considered in the Maine legislature to require owner operators of assets to retire the RECs, which are the renewable energy credits that are produced. Now, those are different than these type of credits. These are basically on the market credits that can be sold to basically anybody out there are willing to purchase them. There's a lot of different markets for those RECs. So if there's a requirement in Maine, we don't believe that it has a whole lot of headway, but we don't really know for sure. But these, this savings is kind of is pretty dependent on the that maintaining our ability to sell those RECs rather than retire them. I would estimate if we had to retire the RECs that the savings might go down in half. So there would be a savings there, but certainly, probably cut in half there. So we're monitoring that closely. We should know actually within the next month or two. So obviously we'll keep you informed on that as well. This slide just kind of shows how it works. So I think just explained it with the numbers, but basically we produce solar power from the system. The power is metered at the site, so they keep track of how many kilowatt hours we produce, and then CMP logs that and records it. We also record it as well for billing purposes, so that we would bill the RSU 25. CMP would meter it so that they could track what they need to credit your bills. And then, these credits from CMP appear on the RSU 25 bills. And then, Ameresco, we bill RSU 25 for the power produced, and the difference between these two are the savings. And this is usually about 30 days, but I'm reading and some of the guidance that this could be 60 days, where credits could end up showing up on your bills as well. So we'll just we'll work that out through the we would work that out through the process. In addition, solar projects certainly have a lot of benefits. We've been certainly talking about a lot of different ways that the project can benefit the RSU 25, in addition to saving on the monetary costs of purchasing power. We definitely participate in educational opportunities, especially with school districts and municipalities. It's one of our core markets, and we're very familiar with partnering with school districts and creating educational opportunities. Ideas that might come to mind are installing a station at the school to provide real-time monitoring, just to show the students what we're producing, and how much CO2 we're preventing from the atmosphere, entering the atmosphere, those kind of metrics. So we look forward to those conversations to see how we can work things into your curriculum, and what you folks feel would be the best path on that, that would work for your school district. So we're pretty flexible on that. Field trips, we definitely have plenty of instances where we're taking students into the the array area to kind of get a hands-on idea and take a look at the solar panels, and just get an idea of how it works, and get the nuts and bolts of it. certainly, and a lot of the operation and maintenance of these arrays is local. There's upkeep of the wiring and some of the electrical, but also there's, we have to cut grass and we have to do snow removal, and there's all kinds of different ways to participate in the long term as well for local folks who are looking to get into this field and participate in some of the long-term operations of the project as well. So a lot of different opportunities with that. We also plan to pay a pilot payment to the town as well. We're planning about $500,000 in pilot payments over the 20-year contract. So in addition to the property taxes, and we're going to committed to paying personal property taxes as well to add to some of the local revenue in the town of Bucksport. That concludes what I've my presentation, Jim. And anything, happy to answer any questions or clarify anything there.
You do have a couple of questions. I'll turn it over to Tom Foster, the chair, to direct those to you.
Okay. Thank you. Our first question comes from Heather Rickman.
My apologies. I was having a hard time understanding the return energy credits that's going to be going on and what that means for us if it goes either way. I got lost in the translation of that. That's all.
Yeah, it sounds like a question on the energy credits and how those work. Is that?
Yes. Yeah, how the legislation is going to affect that and what that means for us going forward.
Sure. So yeah, the legislature has got a bill in process that will require owner operators of solar projects to retire these basically these certificates called renewable energy credits. And in most states, in few states, the utilities take them, corporates take them, all kinds of different, I guess, commercial entities, to comply with their, sustainability goals, I guess. So there's a national market in when you generate a kilowatt hour of energy, it mints a renewable energy credit. And so we as Ameresco or, ABC developer, owner operator asset could take that, certificate and sell it on the market for a price. And, the legislature in Maine is considering a bill at this point that would require us to take that renewable energy credit and retire it, which means we just basically have to rip up that certificate and say, that's it. And, and so that's just that much less revenue that, the project can generate. So, I'm not sure what's going to come out of that. We understand that the bill outcome could be, the decision on that could be, several weeks away. So hopefully that answers your question.
Heather, you have another question?
Yeah, speaking about the energy credits there, would you be open to offering that to local businesses, on as a first serve basis?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. That is, yeah. That's part of the that's part of what we look at. So if, if there is a particular number of credits that you'd be seeking, it's basically dependent on, how much electricity is produced by that local entity or, whatever. We could definitely look into that. So, yeah, we could give you guys, the right first refusal on those racks.
So Rob, if I understand it correctly, the project you're proposing is within Central Maine Power's territory.
That's
So
correct.
therefore, entities to purchase solar credits from this project must be within CMP's delivery area.
That's correct. Yep. So I guess anybody, who would want to purchase the renewable energy credits, it basically, on that front of it, the takers of those renewable energy credits can, basically, those can be sold nationally, but actually the net energy billing credits, which are the credits that, are produced by the solar array and CMP produces and, applies to the bills. Those are the credits that are related to, you need to be in CMP service territory. Hopefully that's clarification what you're looking for.
Heather's got another one.
So I understand that you have, I'm so sorry. I understand that you have a contract with CMP, and how long is that expected to go on?
Yeah, we have an interconnection service agreement with CMP, and that basically runs for the duration of the project. So as long as, we have a net energy billing agreement, which, the minimum is 20 years. We don't know what's going to happen after the 20 years. Is Maine going to extend the program, for another 5, or is it going to be a new program? All we know is that this would be, a 20-year contract, and the agreement that we have with Central Maine Power is basically related to the engineering part of it, where we just take, we take the lines and we extend them to the grid and we connect everything up, and that's basically the agreement that we have with CMP. The agreements related to the net energy billing part of it are, we have to exit those. That would be the next step in the process, and that's certainly why we're, having this meeting with you folks is that, on the credit side, that would be a separate agreement. Hopefully that's what you were looking for.
Do we have any other questions? Abby?
So many. Only because I don't really know a lot about this. So are we looking to house these solar panels
No,
at all? I don't.
so all we're doing is, the project's gonna be built in the wood yard. All we're doing is saying, if we enter into this agreement,
Okay,
that we will agree to purchase a percentage of our load. to
which
start
we're
with.
gonna purchase from someone anyway.
We're purchasing from someone anyways.
Okay,
So we purchased through the Amoresco project.
okay,
We propose 70% of our total usage. We don't want to go 100% because you don't know if we can save energy by all the work that we're doing inside. So 70%. Okay. And what we'll do is, by the time we go through the mechanics of the purchase and the net credit we'll get from CMP, we're going to see a savings annually. And he's
Over
estimating
$40,000.
that initially around $42,000 based on the assumptions that are built into this presentation. And again, there's a lot that we don't control, but the relationship in the project that we have is with a fixed percentile discount will generate us a savings throughout the life of the contract.
now what's the risk involved?
Well, that's what we got to find out. The next step is looking at a proposed contract analyzing the contract, and devil's always in the details.
So we're looking at a work group for that?
I'm looking at lawyers.
Oh, okay.
Yes, a work group
Even
that we
better.
pay $400 an hour for, and they'll advise us.
So what you're looking for today is approval from the board to move forward in investigating this.
That's correct. Take the next step, to take a look at a contract. Before any contract would get signed and consummated, it would come back to this board, and there'd be another chance for conversations and discussions and such. But overall, the benefit to RSU 25 is we have the opportunity to save on our electric bill, which is fairly substantial.
Great, yeah.
We have the opportunity to work with a business that is establishing this in the town of Bucksport. So we're supporting an investment within our district.
Yeah.
Which we're going to reap benefits from as a school district because of the valuation that that's going to add to the community. And then we've just really brushed on the surface. Amoresco is more than willing to work with us educationally and set up a connection so we can tie it into our curriculum. So we have an opportunity. Rob talked about pulling a model, and Mr. West already wants it at the middle school.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about the aquaponics.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can it
so he's gonna go
be that?
aquaponics, he's gonna go solar power, he's just,
All
lots
right.
going on up on the hill.
Great, great.
So, but
No,
there
that's
are,
the clarification of what you're asking of us was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. yeah, not asking for a commitment at this time.
Heather has another question.
So based on the supposed numbers, what's going to be the net yearly cost after the deductions from the solar farm to our electricity bill? What does it look like?
Tell you what we paid last year. You give me a second.
Is it-
Somebody's singing.
Can't we
dance
look
right
at
now.
it in the
Looked really quickly
financials?
For the 1 month, and it's like,
It's spread out
May not
all
be
over
right.
the place.
While we look for that, Rob, I've got a question, and that is, what should happen to us if you have a delay in your project, it doesn't get up and running as quick as you think, or
Yeah.
God forbid, there's a natural disaster and your project is damaged a few years
Yeah.
from now, and you're not able to produce the capacity that you think you can.
Yeah.
What would happen in that instance?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. You know, the agreement that we would present to, the school board basically addresses that the force majeure provisions and, delays in COD. The agreement is tied to the COD date. So basically the COD date is when we start activating the array and we're sending power to the grid. I think what we would propose is that, this agreement would not proceed until we hit the commercial operations date where, electrons are proceeding to the grid and being sent there. I think, look forward to discussions about, whether, a delay would, I think we would be seeking potentially, some flexibility, maybe if it's a month or two. But I mean, if we're getting into delay that's, months on end, then, maybe just, the worst case, I mean, there's nothing to say that there's going to be like a year or two delay, but I don't think you folks want to wait around for that. Certainly. So, we would look into, provisions within this offtake agreement that, would help protect, the town as well, where you could exit the contract and, look at other options. So, but, we would hope that the board would give us at least some flexibility because we're dealing with, CMP, which kind of runs the show on their grid, and we're kind of beholden to their timelines. Same with ISO New England. the project, and every other project I can think of is in this, cluster study. We're fortunate enough to be farther along than a lot of other projects. In fact, I have a feedback call from ISO New England and CMP in a couple weeks here, so I should have a good sense of whether that April timeline for the cluster study, whether that's going to be complete. I think the potential delays would be on that front, and whether it takes longer for Maine DEP to review our state level permit application, which was submitted in December. Working with our consultants, I don't anticipate any significant delays on that front, but Maine DEP is backlogged, as there have been a lot of applications for the program that we're applying for, because a requirement of the Net Energy 1.0 program, which is the more financially attractive program, which is our project is in, was to have an interconnection service agreement with CMP, which we have, and to have all your state permit applications in by the end of 2021, which also occurred. So we have the project well positioned for that. But time will tell on the delays, but with certainly look forward to having that conversation in more detail as we look at the proposed agreement.
Heather, to answer your question, last year we paid about $102,000 a year for electricity,
So it's 50%.
and that's at 13 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's electricity and delivery charge.
I see.
And what we're looking at now is over 18 cents. So if you look at the ratio to that,
Yeah.
it's pretty significant money.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, okay.
Are there any other questions that you have? Then is there a motion that you would like?
I would like, a motion to direct me to continue conversations with Amoresco to do a contract review and report back to the board with the information we find from that.
And I would look for that motion. Mr.
All right,
Fraser?
I move that we allow Mr. Boothby to move forward and further investigate the potential of working with Amoresco.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Claire. And we have a roll call vote that we need to take because we have a remote board member.
Yes. Mr. Foster,
I agree.
Mr. Burgess,
I agree.
Ms. Foster,
In favor.
Mr. Frazier,
I agree.
Mr. Claire,
Yes.
Ms. Rickman.
Yes,
So you have a motion with a 6-0 vote that passes. So we move on, Rob, to the next level and start to really
Thank you.
roll up our sleeves. So
It was nice to meet you.
thank you very much. And we appreciate you thinking of us.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thanks, board. Really appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to our future discussions. Thank you.
Standing. Have a good evening, sir. Thank you.
You too. Yep. Bye-bye.
Aye.
We can get back to our agenda.
All right. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
Yep, in your packet, you had a communication. Basically, it's a fundraiser that's done by the PTO. They've done this in the past. And that's in the process. I did approve that, but wanted you to be aware of it. You also have another communication that I believe Mr. Foster will talk about in his report regarding Ms. Ashford.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I have.
You spooked me there.
I'm sorry. The
Don't be
pressure
so
on
trippy.
you. And that's what I have for communications this month.
Next, we have superintendent's report.
You have my written report. Obviously, we've been very, very busy dealing with COVID. You guys are well aware that the SOPs have changed yet again. So we're in our second iteration since the Christmas break. We are following, as the guidance that I received by the board's motion, we are following the CDC guidelines and staying consistent with those. Right now, we have seen an uptick in cases associated with the Omicron virus. And, but we are hanging in there. Our daily attendance numbers are hovering 87 to 90%. But we're watching them, and it may come as soon as tomorrow that I may have to report to the state. If we drop below 85%, then I'm required to report to the state, just like I would if we had a flu, chicken pox, anything like that. So doesn't mean that we have to close the school. It means I have to report. We'll have conversations just like we did in the fall. And they'll make sure if they just want to verify that what we're doing, what steps we're taking. But everything that we're doing aligns with the expectations. I did have the opportunity to meet directly with Dr. Shaw 3 times now through the Superintendent's Association, actively working with him and translating what their policies are, what does it mean in the field and application. It was very edifying for all people involved. And so we're moving forward with that. So let's see, what else do we have in here? You saw our Amoresco. We also will talk at the Facilities Committee. We're talking about our meeting with BIMS, Building Infrastructure Management Systems. I have a budget timeline in my report. We'll have a conversation later about that. So everything else is on the agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim. The board chair report. Starting out a new year. I've got quite a bit on our plate looking forward here. You can see that we're trying to maintain as many opportunities as we can for our kids. We've got some coaching for plays opening up. So I mean that helps bring things a little bit back more towards normal. You can see that we're discussing maintaining our facilities at a high level. We're getting some real professional help us with that. We're talking about energy contracts that will be able to help finance the school and bring us a little more into the future. And this is a different experience from back in the old days when I was in high school and they were thinking of putting a coal-fired power plant there.
A little different.
So it's just slightly different. But at the same time, we have received a resignation from Mary. I'd just like to read that to you. It's been a privilege to serve the children and families of Verona Island on the RSU 25 school board. However, circumstances in my personal life at this time are such that I feel that I cannot provide the focus and attention needed to serve my community as it deserves. Thank you for your understanding, and I do apologize for this abrupt departure. I will be able to return my laptop on Friday this week. Thank you for your continued support and advocacy for our children of our district.
I know, kind of like she's gonna be gone forever. We're never gonna see her.
You never know. Verona is very far away. Hard to contact.
It's an island, you know.
It is.
It
It's
is
nice.
nice.
So I will reach out to the first selectman and start working with them for identifying a successor.
Perfect.
Okay.
Next, we can move on to committee reports. First up is curriculum committee.
Well, to give you a full recap, curriculum committee, I came in hot to the end of the facilities committee thinking it was already mine. And then I was told that I was not in the right meeting. And I waited for them to end. And we had Todd going first, but he wanted to go back to his school. So we had Allison Braley here. And I'm not going to give a terribly in-depth, because are you on the agenda? Are you going to be, or are you here for students? Okay, and probably Evelyn will touch on this, but Allison Braley's back there. She is one of our teachers, and she is looking to teach a Python class with a Finch robot. which is a robot that you would use the Python language to program it to go through a maze and all kinds of really cool things. So she's got 20 of these robots, I think you said. And so they're looking to help teach measurements, because that's what the feedback was, that kids aren't really great with measurements, not just here, I think everywhere. And so they're looking to teach measurements with this and block coding. They're going to start with some 5th graders and then go to the 7th graders, and then eventually I think one class of 8th graders, so that they kind of hit everybody. So that was cool. And then we got back to Todd. He was giving us a STARS grant update. And so there are several parts to the STARS grant. They've built their building. They're working on building tables now, and then they need a Part C project. And this is where he wants to do his aquaponics fish and ecosystem project, which is pretty cool. And he wants to involve not only the kids from the STARS program, but some of the gifted and talented kids as well. So that was really cool. But he's going to need to apply for a REV grant because he needs a little bit more money than he's got left over to do that. So the only instruction that Jim gave me was that he was not allowed to spend any more of our money. So he's going to apply for a grant. All right, then we went to Evelyn. Evelyn had a, she just wanted to let us know that, well, you guys already know, but her teacher plan update was updated and approved by the board, but now they're working on one for the ed techs because they never had that in place. So that's pretty cool. Jen with Aspire gave us just kind of a rundown of what she's been doing, which is mostly planning for the spring. And she needs to spend her money by June 30th. So she's working on planning that. And then Jim was with his mother, so he was unable to give us the district updates, but he's spending most of his time thinking about the budget season and doing pod testing, and that was the end of our meeting.
Yep.
I don't think you left anything out.
No, do you guys feel like you were there?
Well, I was part of it.
You were there for the beginning, which was the end of the facilities meeting.
Do you have any questions for Ed? Okay. Finance committee met right before this meeting. We discussed our budget to actual. We're currently in a good shape in every budget category. Visually, it looks as though transportation is a little bit under where we thought it should be, but that's mostly because we haven't accounted for the revenues to come back in. A spot that we're focusing on, just keeping an eye on, is the cost of substitutes. Really is kind of chewing into that a little bit. But other than that, all budget line items look healthy. We also looked at food service, which once we get in this month's subsidy check, will continue its positive track. And we looked at the senior food, and they are doing very well as well. Any questions about finance? Next, we have policy.
Policy committee did not meet.
Facilities and grounds.
Yep, we met last week and we had a presentation on the solar project that we just heard about. And then we had a little bit on from the BIMS people about the audit they're doing on all of our buildings to look at how we can improve those and make it more efficient.
Any questions for facilities? Yes.
Is the BIMS, is that thing where we have to replace that one side of the wall of the building?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
Look at that and air quality and just
Oh, yeah.
everything.
The HVAC stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
We have HCTC.
Yes, we did meet, and we had some exciting things going on. Because of a Melback grant, many of the different schools down there were able to go visit, like Hospitality was able to visit EMCC's business program and Hudson University Hospitality program. Multimedia Design visited the University of Maine and the New England School of Communications at Hudson. Law enforcement went to the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, and health occupations visited EMCC and Hudson's nursing program. So it was very nice that these kids will be able to get out and go to universities and colleges. Once again, the Ellsworth Rotary is having in-person Students of the Month program, and our very own Tyler Hallett in the welding program was one of the honorees of Student of the Month. So that was great. And the last thing that's of importance is they are going to have Skills USA this year, March 18th at 2 different sites, but the opening and closing ceremonies are going to be done virtually. And I guess there was a lot of discussion, and it finally came out as, well, if schools can have basketball, I guess we can have Skills USA. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. So that's, they're also dealing with COVID issues, and of course, they have to deal with all the different high schools and everything that surround us, so that's always a challenge.
Do we have any questions for HCTC? And then do we have anything on ad hoc this time around?
We did not meet, but we need to get that fit in because we're at a point to do a recommendation, but we're gonna run it by the committee.
Is policy working for that too, ad hoc? So they're gonna come up with some kind of policy.
We haven't had that conversation yet. So that needs to happen.
Well, for old business, we had none. For new business, we have some personnel.
I have no retirements or resignations. I do have nominations. I've got, for coaches co-curricular, I've got Tara Woods, BHS One Act Plays as a coach. And I've got volunteer for wrestling, Darren Ripley, and a wrestling for robotics, Janaya Gomes.
Any discussion on any of those? If not, I would look for a motion.
I move that we accept the 3 nominations as a block.
Second,
We have a motion for Mr. Frazier and a second for Mr. Claire. And now we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Foster,
I agree.
Mr. Burgess,
I agree.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Claire,
yes.
Ms. Rickman.
Yes.
All right, 6-0, that passes.
Perfect. We've got established dates for school board budget workshops.
It is that time of year, so Scott didn't bring his phone.
I know, I'm lost.
But we are looking to, in February, to start presenting to the board. So I would suggest either the second or the 4th week to do our first presentation.
Not the 10th.
Not the 10th, no, we're busy the 10th, but remember, we also have negotiations going on, so we're gonna have to fit things in, so. Your meeting is on the 15th. Your regular meeting, that's why I suggested stay away from that 3rd week.
I think earlier is better than later because it's winter and things are unpredictable.
Okay. Would the 8th be a potential? That's a Tuesday?
Policy committee meets on the 8th.
Yep.
At 5:30.
We do. Maybe.
Trying to keep track of all the meetings so I
Yeah.
don't accidentally crash another one.
Yeah. Sometimes policy will put on hiatus for starting to get stacked up. The 9th, possibility. And that's a workshop similar to what we did for the board training workshop. It's just go through, we do overview and
I could do the 9th.
I'm fine with the 9th.
What do you think, Dave? 9th, okay? 9th looks good.
good, good with, what would you like to start? 5:30 or 6?
6 easier for people?
Yeah, 6 is easier.
Okay. So we'll do budget workshop on the 6th,
The 9th at 6.
on the 9th at 6. Just check and see if you're paying attention.
Oh, yeah, I'm on it.
Well done. Do you want to have a second one in February, that 4th week?
We could always cancel it if we don't need it, right?
Or if you're not ready or something.
Yeah.
At school.
No, the school vacation is the 21st, 22nd. So the first week of March, I guess it should go to. You have one day in February.
Well,
How about the second? Would that work?
Sounds good.
3-2 at 6 PM. That's Wednesday. That'll stay consistent.
Keep it
So,
on the Wednesday.
so let's stay with that. We'll get started with it there and we'll plan beyond. Perfect. Okay. Just so everybody knows, I got the preliminary 279 just came in before this meeting. So that's always exciting, and that's by statute supposed to be out by the 1st of February, so they're actually a couple weeks
Wow.
early. So that's an exciting day for me. I'll spend tomorrow just combing through that, getting to become very familiar with it. See where we're at.
Oftentimes when we do the budget, we've been doing, we've been focusing mostly on just changes,
The major
the
changes.
major changes, so that we don't get ourselves too bogged down.
Yeah.
But we do have some new faces here. If through the budget process, some of our newer people need additional discussion time with you.
Absolutely.
Open for that.
Absolutely. We can
Just,
set up. a
just so
time
that
to
we
meet.
don't clog up the workshop with.
Yep.
You know, what makes up this particular thing in whole.
Yep.
I want to know how many staplers you're buying, that kind of thing.
Part of the challenge is just we have ongoing teacher negotiations and, personnel is over 70% of our budget, so that's gonna have a major impact, so. The first couple of meetings will be a major overview, 30,000-foot level, get everybody comfortable, familiar with drafts, and then we start digging into it. So in my report, I shared the timeline. Your dates are pretty targeted, May 17th, that's the date you have, by then, you have to have a budget that you want to present to the communities, so. Backwards planning. All right, perfect.
All right, now, so you get set down vote here, but.
No,
assume
we
that
don't,
we're
no,
all-
we're fine, that's
Okay,
established.
Great, all right. There's no first readings. We got second readings. We got 4 of them.
Yep, and these are carried over, you had first readings last month, presented to you unchanged.
There's no other discussion. I would look for a motion.
Well, I move that we accept the 4 policies as they are listed.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Frazier. We have a second from Mr. Claire. And then we'll have a roll call vote.
All right, roll call vote, I'm gonna switch it up, Ms. Rickman.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Claire,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes,
and Mr. Foster.
Yes.
6-0, that moves forward. Those policies have been adopted and we'll get those published. So thank you very much.
Next, we can have conversation and discussion relative to the senior trip and other senior activities.
Mr. Tripp.
So I'm going to with a very different senior trip proposal because we're still trying to forecast what a trip might look like for us actually in the future, which after the last 2 weeks is very difficult to kind of wrap our heads around. So what I wanted to basically do on just behalf of the senior class, if they have been fundraising like they do every year, with the hopes of being able to do something. And then basically, they have decided on just like 2 or 3 options, and just wanted to get some guidance as to what the board would be supportive of. Knowing that we may have to shift a month down the road, 2 months down the road. I will say that it's been difficult for the senior class. I mean, every year, anytime we do a trip, trying to get kids to participate in fundraising and want to go on these trips. As you know, if we have a class of 90, if we can get 40 kids to go, that's a big turnout. And people don't want to go for a variety of reasons. But I will say this year has been a little more difficult because I think kids are just assuming that they're not going to be able to do things, unfortunately, because of the experiences over the last couple of years. So their desire to want to get out and actually fundraise and participate in some of these things has just been harder than usual, and it's kind of difficult anyways. But that being said, they still want to think about the possibility of being able to do something. So they really have 3 different trips that they are thinking about, that they think that they have enough money to fundraise for. They're all trips that we have done in the past. So the first one is a trip to Canopy Lake in New Hampshire. And that would either be an overnight trip, if we were able to, or a down and back trip. So that's something that we could do either. If we are looking at busing options for that, whether we do a Sear bus, which obviously is pretty expensive, or if we could use our buses. We know out-of-state travel with our buses right now is not something we can do, but Mr. Booth is looking into that possibility for us.
Yes, we will be able to have that by the time this comes around.
Okay. So again, that's a trip to an amusement park, something that we've done before. You know, oftentimes we stopped at like Old Orchard Beach or something on the way down, depending on the number of kids and what they want to do. You know, we have had with a girls soccer team a successful experience with an overnight trip so far, staying in a hotel. And again, we know that that's just a very dynamic situation. So obviously, it's more expensive to stay for an overnight, but it certainly, they're gonna have probably, I mean, if you're on a bus all day long, then at the park all day long, and then driving all the way back, you have some pretty worn out kids by the time you get back into the school around midnight. The third alternative would be something a little more local, and it'd be like a whitewater rafting trip, was the third one that they were interested in. So that would be something that we would have to go through, contract through a company. They would set that up, but there's been a number of area schools. We haven't done a whitewater rafting trip in a long time. It's pretty much always been in the amusement park, but we have had an outing club trip do that a number of years ago, and other schools, other senior classes have done it kind of in the local area. So there's, so that's where that, obviously there's waiver forms and stuff that students would have to complete prior to that trip. So we would make sure all of that appropriate paperwork. Before we actually kind of got any trip set in stone, the students are just looking for some guidance as to what the board would be supportive of before they reach out to get like final information from the companies. But those are the 3 trips that they are looking to do this year.
Josh, at the risk of sounding like a moron, I can only remember 2 of them. Go to Canopy Park and do the water raft. What's the third option?
That's all, I'm sorry, Canopy is overnight Canopy and then down and back.
Oh, okay.
Canopy.
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize.
I
I had
thought,
the same question.
Sorry, there's 3 options in my mind, but 2 different separate trips.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
The return at midnight.
And again, I would be, well, I mean, but if you figure you have a 3-hour bus ride plus to New Hampshire, you're there at the park all day long, stop, get something to eat. It's a pretty late
Yeah,
return.
that is a late return.
So, and again, I'm throwing midnight out there. It could be a little bit earlier than that, but
Could be
obviously, if you-
later. I mean, we could be talking about potentially them coming in at like 2 o'clock in the morning because the bus,
yeah.
higher anything.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is kind of the big negative to doing the down and back, but it does avoid us having to worry about hotel rooms and some of the issues that COVID had. And again, I mean, we were to navigate it pretty successfully with the soccer team, and not percent, I thought very successfully, but things are also very different right now than they were even just a few months ago when we did that trip.
does the classes funding make it feasible to do all 3 of these?
Well, yes, it does. Again, because the numbers that are really super interested in going are lower than even normal. I know one thing that we are looking to do, and not a proposal for this necessary board meeting, but you remember last year, one event that was really, that the seniors, I think, come to me and said, we're so glad, thank you for doing this, was the senior day that we did at the end of the year, where for 9 through 11, we had an asynchronous day, and we brought just the seniors in, and we did senior assembly and a senior versus faculty basketball game, and we cooked food for them, and we played games, and just the positive feedback we got from them. And we had, when I was thinking, oh, we're gonna get, half the kids are gonna blow this off because we're not gonna take attendance. And we had close to 85% of our seniors show up on the day that they really didn't have to. So there's been a lot of talk again for seniors asking if we were gonna do that. Obviously, that would be something that I would bring to you. we think with all three options, even if we had a really small number that did this class trip, and there have been a group of seniors that have worked hard and done a lot of fundraising at football games and basketball games, we would still have leftover money to put on a pretty good senior day if we were allowed to do so again. So even though we would have a small group potentially going on this trip, we would have leftover funds that would support a large number of senior class, more so than we even did in the past with our senior class trips.
So what you're saying, that even if not a lot of the kids, you could still do a senior day where they could all get together in the field and have hot dogs and hamburgers and, you know, fireworks or whatever. If they
I mean, they've been
wanted to.
talked about like bringing a food truck in and like just doing some pretty cool things on that day. Which, again, me personally, this is just me, like, that's what I enjoy seeing, because you get so many more kids and there's gonna be a lot of good memories there.
Right.
And again, I get the kids wanting to have a senior class trip as well. So, but I actually think that, again, based on the numbers right now and kids that have actually earned senior points through fundraising, we would probably be able to do both with any one of these options that we've talked about.
I mean, you know, back from years ago, a concern that Scott and I have always had was the amount of people who were able to go on the trip. We always wanted to see everybody be able to go on a trip. And I think the senior day there that you have now really kind of helps alleviate that, where that is more so now the every senior gets to have something. And you know, from talking with people who have been seniors a lot more recently than I am, they really like that day. That is the day that they really look forward to. And so I want to make sure that there was ample funding for that. And, you know, I think all three proposals that you have are fine proposals. We've seen those types of trips before. I don't personally have any issues with any one of them. I think that they would be fine. The only concern I would have is just if a lot of fundraising hasn't happened over these years because, well, you know what's happened.
Yeah.
You might just not have enough funding. It was what I was worried about.
Well, the good news is that they did a lot of fundraising while their time since they've obviously been freshmen. And what happens is you typically have a big expense of the prom your junior year. And of course, we didn't have the prom last year, so they didn't have that expense. So any money that they have fundraised is still there on top of, we have football season this year, which that's really their biggest money because they do concessions at a football game, you know, so there is a pot of money that is available that we will be able to do any one of these trips. I'm confident with, and still have plenty of money, especially since I budgeted money for in anticipation of being able to have this day regardless of what this was going to look like. I didn't plan on getting a food truck like they suggested, so it might look a little fancier than the senior day that Mr. Tripp was putting together, which was Mr. Boothby and I cooking hamburgers and hot dogs on a grill out back, but
With our trucks.
that's what,
Yeah, that's a food truck.
Truck, right?
I'll volunteer my
Yeah.
truck.
You get ketchup and mustard.
Yeah.
And again, we're a little bit away from that, but I do anticipate looking to make that request possibly in the future. And again, I know it does mean that we're keeping a large portion of the school at home, but I think given what we haven't been able to do over the last couple of years, it's a good thing to offer to our senior class.
Any other questions?
I think I would definitely be in favor of any of those as long as, you know, the proper COVID precautions were taken because we want to keep all our kiddos safe, but.
Obviously, anything outside, we don't have to, we wouldn't be requiring, do it just like we would any other outside event, but anything inside, we would be using.
Of course, we don't know what it'll look like then. I
Right.
mean, maybe there won't be inside, you know, who knows?
Yeah, and that's why you're not getting the formal presentation with like
Yeah.
exactly what time we're leaving and where we're going, because there's just so many unknowns. But I figured at least with these trips that we know that we've done successfully and we can pull off.
Yeah.
We can just, and I would have something more written out formally that I would send to you.
How many students want to do the whitewater rafting? How many
I'd have to go with that. We're under 20 for all of the options right now.
Wow. that is
So
really
it's-
cool.
And
Yeah.
again, on a normal year, you're in the 35 to 40 range. A lot of
Yeah.
people just, they don't want to put the time in to do the fundraising, more so than they don't want to do the trip. And again, we've always made it so that people are not, this isn't just buying your way to a trip. We want to make sure that it's equitable and accessible to all students. And just having been a class advisor and then obviously as principal, it's a lot of work to go. I mean, some of the trips we used to do it was a lot of money. We were going to Pennsylvania and to Hershey Park. The trips have gotten closer over the years, which has been good. They've been more affordable. But quite honestly, I think this year is just, there's this sense that, we could do all this work, and we're probably not gonna get to go, because we haven't been able to do. And I get that, and I've tried to I'm like, listen, guys, we'll do what we can. But I've told them that before, right? And so it's unfortunate, but again, I think having that potential senior day as a addition, kind of whatever we can do for the small group that can go, we still have something for a larger group as well.
I like the idea of the senior day. I really like that, because you are gonna get a greater number. The only one that I've had reservations about is the whitewater rafting. I remember a few years ago when Bob Sinclair was here, he tried to talk my wife into going, and she said there was no way she was going on that. And I think he came back on crutches, if I remember correctly.
Oh, boy.
I mean, there's always that chance, and that's the only way. I'm a little apprehensive about the whitewater rafting, but I think they're all, if they're willing to take that risk. I don't know how liable we would be.
Well, like everything, you have liability,
Yeah.
but there'll be waivers that'll be.
I
required to
think
be
if you're going
signed.
through a company, like that's the first thing they
Yeah,
do.
they have
is-
insurance and they have insurance. And I will tell you, Scott, as a principal, we did whitewater rafting was part of our senior trip. And the secret was, as principal, you wanted to make sure who was in your raft.
How
Because
good
it
are
was-
they at paddling? Can
Yeah,
they
somebody's
swim?
gonna
Can they
paddle
pull
and
themselves
somebody's
back
not
on
gonna
the
pull
boat?
you out of the boat.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
I can't imagine anybody pulling you out of the boat.
Oh, Scott.
I'd be right behind you.
And I would certainly send all that information to the board before we would sign off on the deadline. But there are, and again, just talking with other schools that have done this a number of times, and we did it my senior year for our class trip. They have very straightforward releases that you have to sign, and and it's cold, so a lot of people,
Yeah.
This is in June, it's fine.
Oh,
late May.
ice will be out. Just be able.
Water temperatures are up around 50. It'll be fine.
And all three of those trips would be on the weekend, so there wouldn't be an academic. If we maybe leave, if we did the overnight one, it might be a leave early on a Friday. But it would be missing academic time.
Sounds good.
It sounds like you've got a consensus here of people who support all three.
Yep.
So,
So you have enough information to move forward?
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thanks.
awesome.
Next, we've got consideration of employee request for leave.
Yeah, we have two employees, happen to be husband and wife, that their family are planning a wedding anniversary celebration for them. And it's not even in the state, so they requested an extended leave. I definitely support this, but this is out of the ordinary, so I bring these to the board for your approval.
We're able to find substitutes for
Yeah, Mr. Tripp will
I
do a
know,
great
I was just thinking.
Yep, well, we'll
Are
get
we
it.
going to be substituting?
We'll let you judge. We'll keep you.
No.
informed.
I've done my.
Did you hear that? He's already got substitutes planned.
Oh, wonderful.
How much time are we talking?
They're asking for,
A week?
Yeah.
This doesn't come up very often.
no, it's not
Usually-
typical, and I appreciate, we have different employees. Sometimes people, before we hire them, have trips planned. And if that's the case, we allow that to happen. And we've got some other ones coming up. I know we have another request again, another wedding anniversary, and, it's all well and good. And we try to work with our people. They're not abusing their time. So.
I think if
That's why
your
I feel comfortable
assessment is that
recommending.
you're in favor of it, that's You can go on.
So I would look for a motion.
Well, I move that we allow the employee couple to leave that they are requesting.
We have a motion from Mr. Frazier and a second from Mr. Claire, and we will have a roll call vote.
Ms. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Claire,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Foster.
Yes. Let's care of that. Now we will have our time for administrator and principal reports. And we'll go right to the old list. First up, Evelyn Coleman.
We're keeping up these wonderful young people here too. so.
You got a great overview to my report from the committee's report out from our meeting. We had a wonderful full meeting last week, and I didn't know after hearing Abigail's great rendition if you had any questions. We talked about upcoming, yes.
Come on now.
When she said, no, the only thing I forgot to mention was a part of her grant with the robots and teaching out. You may want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, we did receive, we wrote for, Alice and I met, and we wrote a grant to the computer science at the Department of Ed. And it's funding for her to have her Finch robots. But also part of that grant is a professional development grant. And Alice is going to be working with Kim at Miles Lane and training her. We are paying stipends for the training and for Kim to take the training. And Alice will also make that training available to any teacher at the middle school who is interested in learning more about it. So not only is it a tool that she's incorporating into her teaching, but we're also getting it out. And we bought complete sets. So Allison has one robot per student in every classroom. She'll be teaching it. And we also bought a set for Miles Lane. So our students there will be experiencing it and getting exposed to it as well.
And Actum, I forgot to mention that too. And she'll be demonstrating in Actum.
Yeah.
That's,
Any other questions?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Sam.
you.
Next, we've got Andrea Marks, special education.
Oh, yeah, she's sitting quietly right back there.
I received my report and we've been very busy in special ed world. And there's been challenges and gifts all over the place. Actually, it's been quite nice. We've been a little short-handed, so some of Tara and I have been not just administrating, going in with the children, and of course we all know Joey is with the children and watching them and seeing how they're responding to things, and so it's been really great. We're really looking closely at social emotional learning. We're working at Jewett. And Tara and the BCBA have been very hands-on with the program, trying to make sure that the ed techs and the children are getting good positive feedback in the direction that we're trying to work towards, that's put into our strategic plan with RSU. We have 4 teachers going to Spire training, or 2 teachers and 2 tech 3. We have 1 teacher at the high school doing some transition planning and IEP writing and transition plans. And we also have people getting ready to administer the alternative assessment. And so we just keep plugging along, we're looking at budget, looking at priorities, seeing where we've invested some instructional money and where we're balancing those pieces out and what our next steps would be. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we've got Josh Tripp.
So again, I apologize. I literally lost a week in January somewhere. I thought the school board meeting was next week. So I went from last month actually getting my board report in on time to now being like 4 days late. So
One month in a row.
1 month in a row. That's right. So it's been obviously very busy. We did start midterms exams this week. And Mr. Blakely threw a wrench into it right away by delaying us for 2 hours and making us adjust on the fly. But that's okay. We are settled in. We'll be back on track. But no, it's typically you wouldn't think it's a big thing, but the fact that we haven't done this at all last year or finals from the year before, so getting it kind of back in the place of being able to do this. So we have half of our school that's never had a midterm or final exam before, which is it's just very interesting to think about it that way. So we're going to get through that. Then the second semester is going to start. And again, for us at the high school, that means there's a lot of new courses for the kids. So again, it's kind of a refresh for a lot of new courses. And then we're right kind of back into the wings for recruitment. So we are going to have a step up night we have moved it to the 16th just to try to buy us a little bit of time just with the spiking cases here. We were going to try to have it at the end of this month, but we're going to do it on February 16th. So the night after the board meeting. And we have already presented at Warrington at the Center Drive School. And then we kind of have our like little dog and pony show that the guidance counselors and myself, we go and recruit kids at Dedham, Castine, Penobscot. And we actually have kids that we know are interested in 3 or 4 of those schools. So we'll be going to present to them. And we've actually had great enrollment from our sending schools in those communities. We've actually had some pretty good tuition rates. So, it is paying off, and the offerings and the programs that we have are reflective of the students that want to come here through choice. And then Tom kind of mentioned, it's just, again, I think I say this every month, but you miss the events a lot that you didn't have. So, when you haven't seen a play in a year and a half, and you get to bring a name forward for drama festival, that gets you excited. Or when you go to a basketball game and you hear the pep band for the first time in over a year, and not just a play, it gets you excited. So again, it's different. It's not the same, but it's still exciting to see the robotics team down there working on a robot. Even though they know it's going to look a little bit different, the kids are excited. Yeah, I think it's just a good time. So again, sorry, short report, late. I'll take any questions because I know you didn't have any time to read it.
Any questions for Josh?
When are midterms?
What's that?
When are the midterms?
This week.
This week.
Yes. So tomorrow, today was a review day, testing tomorrow, review day on Thursday, then more tests on Friday.
Get your chemistry studying in now.
Wow, yeah, you better.
Turn off the school board meeting and get back to studying.
Right, right.
And we are only testing in our core subjects, so our electives are not doing the midterms, just math, science, social studies, and history.
Any other questions? Thanks a lot, Josh. Next, we've got Todd.
Oh, good evening, everyone. How cool is it to have some of our student council kiddos here? Experiencing local government in all of its highs and lows, right? But I think it's great that student council this year, they've really looked at not just doing activities, which is an important part of student council, but they're really interested in the governance aspect and how to be involved in your community. So they've been here, they're looking at going to municipal meetings. There's high hopes that they'll be able to go to the State House at some point this spring, but that's difficult to figure out what the State House is. They've got their own COVID concerns that they're working through. But, I think it's great to have kids willing to come out and see how people make decisions and how you can be involved as a citizen. So And it's, I'm sure, the most exciting night you can have.
They're right on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, I know.
They're still away.
Yeah, no, no, but I'm so glad that they're here. So our DARE program is restarted. That's, you know, there's a hiatus that had more to do with changeover in school resource officer personnel and getting training. It's one of the few things that we can't say, oh, because of COVID, where, you know, we had to put this on hiatus and now it's back. And, you know, it really has to do with some other things, but it's nice to begin starting that program again. I think there was 3 years there where we had it offered to all fifth graders, and I think that was you know, a nice opportunity for them as well as for you know, the school resource officer to begin making some positive connections early on the first day of DARE class this year. In addition to Officer McCrellis, we had Chief Gagan and Officer Schmidt come into the classroom. So there were 3 policemen in the 5th grade class, and it was the best behavior of the 5th grade class ever, I think. But you know, I know those kids really enjoy it when they come in and get to see that. We had our spelling bee last week. We had 2 7th graders finish 1st and 2nd in the spelling bee, Sophia Betzer and Emma Clement, and they're going to be going on to the Hancock County bee, so that's really exciting. Bucksport Middle School is going to host the Hancock County Spelling Bee this year, which is first in a while. I'm not sure, has that happened before that we're aware of?
I think it happened one time before. A few
Okay,
years
yeah,
ago.
so first time in a while, which is great. We're always looking to be able to show off the Klein Auditorium. Not all the schools in Hancock County are participating this year, unfortunately, but those who are will get to see our facility, and we'll have plenty of room to, you know, space them out and that sort of stuff. So that's exciting. And then, you know, like Josh mentioned, we do have a musical that we're hoping to put up this spring. Livia's had a couple of rehearsals. She wasn't pulling her hair out at the end of rehearsal today, so that's a good sign. You know, trying to get middle school students who may not have ever been on stage before, you know, trying to get them in the right place and remember that, you know, it's a lot of work. And so we're kind of playing it by ear. Our hope is that we can put something up this spring. You know, we know that, you know, if your lead parts go out on quarantine, it can make it hard to get the program to where it needs to go, but we're hopeful that that's going to be able to take place.
I'm sure it will depend on how the virus is, but if you have to limit or keep people from viewing it, is there any way to like broadcast it?
Yep, we certainly can stream it. We've got
Great.
lots of experience streaming events by now, and have most of the bugs worked out.
Because I hear there's an up and coming actor playing
Yes,
Mr. Warbucks.
Yeah, I know, there's a couple.
I don't want to miss out on.
Yes. So we'll definitely, you know, we'll work hard to make sure that they can put the show up, hopefully, and then we'll do what we can do. Again, like if we can let 100 spectators in for a basketball game, there's no reason we can't let 100 spectators in for a play. So.
He knows what he's doing.
Oh,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
he's on it.
thank you.
Oh, why would we?
Someone's coming for your job, Mr. Moore.
All right. Sign
I
him up
appreciate you
for
waking up, Mr. Burgess. Starting to get very dim back.
Very much so.
That's the gist of my report.
Mr. West, I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, as far as broadcasting the play, are there any copyright issues we run into there?
That's a good question. We have to look into that.
We can research that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that a lot of the plays, you can't even record it for your own personal use. So I just let's make sure we investigate that part of it too.
Yeah.
I already have that note, Mr. Burgess. I don't want to get in
I figured
trouble.
you were all over it, but I didn't want you to think I was totally falling asleep back here.
I'm glad you read your text message I sent you. That's good.
Do you have any other questions for Tom? Thank you very much. Next, we've got Christina.
have a copy of my report. Just really quickly want to say hello to my former Moslin students. It's so nice to have you guys here tonight. I am glad you're here. You're not bored. I know you're not. It's great to see you guys. So I appreciate that you're continuing on with student council. Nice to see you. Couple of things going on at Miles Lane besides trying to find substitutes. So Abby, if you are serious, I can sign you up. You just let me know your availability. We're doing pretty good, actually. We've been able to kind of maintain what we need to maintain. We did have one day where we did have to call up a UA class, but I mean, that's not bad compared to districts of my colleagues that are working in other districts where they've had to do a lot of shifting. So we've been doing pretty good. Doris Daly is our elementary sub-color, and she and I talk every single morning at about 5:45. It's like our good morning cup of coffee together, but she's amazing. And between the two of us, we are able to juggle everything pretty much every day. So that's great. As far as like what we're doing at both Miles Lane and Jewett, we are getting ready to do our winter NUIA testing. We do like to do the winter testing just because it does give us a pulse check. We're going to push that just a little bit later. Mr. Morrow has our dates. We'll be doing it the last week of January and the first week of February, as opposed to like second, third week of January, just because the state had us do our fall testing so late this year. So we just want to make sure we have the right number of instructional weeks in order to get a good read on how our kids are doing before they have to take the state, third and fourth graders will take the NUIA as a state assessment at the end of May. So that will give us great information on our interventions and how those are working and kind of plan accordingly. We've already done some adjusting in our Title I services at both schools, just because we've noticed some kiddos that aren't quite making the progress we would expect at this point. And some of that has to do with absences. It's just tricky. If they've had to be out for COVID reasons or any other variety of reasons, it's just tricky to kind of make sure that we keep them up to date with their interventions. So we're working through that. We do have some training coming up on January 27th. We have a Lucy Calkins trainer, Kelly Smith, coming back. She came to us in October. She's returning for a day. She'll work with our third and fourth grade teachers that are new to us, just to kind of check in and see how they're doing. And it's great. Thank you, Evelyn, for planning those, because it is nice to keep that fresh for folks and not kind of let that fall by the wayside, especially our folks that might have been using the program for a year, or some of our teachers last year were teaching remote and now they're in person. So just making sure that they're all set, especially if they were new to us last year. And we had Northern Stars Planetarium come to visit Wing 1 students. John Meter from Fairfield, he used to work at the University of Maine many years ago, and he has a traveling planetarium dome, and he's back doing that and follows all COVID guidelines. We had to limit the number, our group sizes, but it was great to be able to offer that to our Wing 1 students who had been to the Challenger Center. And so,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't hear you.
It's okay, it's hard through the mouse.
What kind of dome is it?
So it's like a huge blow up dome. It's you can see the pictures in my report. It's huge.
It's a portable planetarium.
Yeah, it's portable
Portable
planetarium.
planetarium.
It's pretty cool.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and he's
I'll
great
have
with
to
the
take a look.
kids. Yeah, definitely pretty cool. So they had a great time going through the solar system. He has all the planets for Sonic 5, so pretty neat show that he put on. Other than that, we've been just really focusing on relationship building and SELs, social emotional learning, which you hear me talk about every single month. I did give another shout out to you all for supporting our learning centers at both schools, because I'm not sure how we function without them. So I appreciate the support the board and the budget has given to those programs. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Christine? Oh, thank you. Next, we've got Kathy.
Just a little bit ahead of Josh for my report, so my apologies. The biggest thing that I wanted to highlight is that the Maine college communities and university systems are trying to reach out and really deepen their relationship with adult ed. Some of that is a little bit because their enrollments are down, so all of a sudden we've been pushing for this for years, and now all of a sudden they're very receptive, but it is a benefit. One of the first things they have is 50 slots for adult education students only that are free in the community college system. It's first come, first serve, but there is an application process. You do have to be an adult education student or had recently been an adult education student. At the same time that Adult Ed is really trying to get the word out that due to the law changes in WEO, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before, but we are trying to let people know that we're here for not just college, but for career access. We here at this site have 3 students right now that are trying to retain employment because the rules changed. They had to have a certification or there's a new test. And we have 2 that are trying to upskill, and their math scores are all 3 of them, and they are not where a high school senior needs to be to retain or upskill their jobs. So we're really trying to get that word out. Part of that is we have received as a hub a grant for $43,000 for marketing. And what I will be bringing back to you is the hub itself is looking at a family of logos so that they can identify that we are a hub, which we are legally required to partner in. So it will mean background colors, themes, fonts. You will not lose the individuality of the program. It will still be RSU 25 adult education. But when they see this family of logos, they will know that we also belong to Hub One, and we're hopefully going to come to an agreement on the name for that hub, because no one likes Hub One, which is the only thing we've come to agreement on. We will be bringing that back to you. We won't be making any decisions within the hub without talking to our school districts. But we have met for the first time with a marketing firm, wound up having to meet again to get all of us on the same page, which it's, you can imagine bringing 7 programs together, trying to have that conversation. But we had a follow-up meeting today, and we are still moving forward with that. But we have, the marketing firm came back with wanting to change our names and make Washington and Hancock County all one name, and we all just said, nope, not going there. So I do want to reassure you that we'll be keeping our individuality, but we'll be looking more along similar design shapes, colors, fonts, consistent themes to help recognize that we are Washington Hancock County Hub. Any questions around that?
What are the colors?
We would be able to take that design and bring our own school colors into it, which is the really cool part, because it's also my favorite color is the purple part.
So we don't have to be like Blue Devils or something.
No, we do not. Somebody else gets that.
That was my only concern.
Nope, but we all have different fonts, we all have different sizes, we all have different, the way we lay out our webpage. And there will be some type of a logo, which we kind of exploded on our first meeting because they were really disappearing our individual programs, and nobody wants that to happen. But we did decide that maybe a tagline could be something we could agree on.
Good luck.
So, yes, well, there's 7 of us and we all had our own little ideas. So, but I think we came to a really good agreement today and decided that if we can't agree on a name, we'll agree on a tagline and a shape. So there will be a consistent theme, and hopefully, because funding is becoming much more hub related, our AFLA grant, our college and community education grant, our workforce innovation grant, which is our college, is our clinical medical assistant program we're doing with RSU 24 in Washington County. And that exploded this time around. We were probably triple the students we can take in that for our pilot program for the remote class. So we've been incredibly busy, but doing the same thing all month.
Heather had a question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is it possible that we, maybe send out a survey to maybe some of the past and present students and see what they think it should be, or?
I actually have a survey that we can do that.
Yeah.
And we got it today. And yes, that is, we did discuss, it would be really nice to have our students be able to do that. Part of the issue too is a couple of adult ed programs had just finished doing huge amounts of work at designing their own logos. So they obviously don't want to give those up, but yes, absolutely. And I can send a copy to the school board if you would like to have that to look at.
Yeah.
It is, the marketing firm's just collecting data at this point. But we certainly let them know what we don't want. Very emphatically, I might add, one of the directors walked out of the room.
Yeah, if you don't want it, you don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can definitely forward that to you.
Any other questions for Kathy? Thank you very much. Next, I've got Jen Terry.
Nothing is dramatic, it's people walking out of a room.
Those
So-
development directors are just quite a group,
I know.
out of control.
The state director sent me the video of someone herding cats.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what? Why?
Herding, H-E-R-D.
Oh,
Herding cats, like the impossible task. Not hurting.
Thank you.
Good to clarify, yeah. So just so run down through a few things we've been doing. Jordan and I were able to go on our second field trip with collecting footage, thanks to Mr. Burgess. We were able to go down to Hinckley Company, and a 2-hour tour. Jordan is now trying to turn into a 7-minute video. So that's taking a little while. We also have provided seniors with the opportunity to let us know if they want a career conversation with a person in the field when they get accepted into a college or technical program. And we've had a few more so far this year. We're on pace for more of those than last year. And so Jordan, we kind of brainstorm who might be the people, and then she sets that up. So she's been able to do a couple of those this month for some seniors. We had the newsletter came out on Friday last week for January. And we've been continuing to work on building relationships and finding ways to support teachers within buildings with things that are already going on, and trying to find out where there's areas of need without causing extra people extra work, extra meetings. So we've been trying to attend staff meetings, and we've gone for the 3rd time to Evelyn's new to RSU class to share information. They were given the opportunity again this year to fill in the survey, to do the aspiration timeline that I make. So I'm keeping up on those as they fill it in, and I'm getting them made. And this year we asked them to commit to sharing their timeline with their class. And then they can decide if they want, it's totally fine if they don't want us to broadly share it, but we really are trying to encourage that, at least a conversation with their own students about what path took them to becoming a classroom teacher. And we're doing quite a bit of planning. So in the December steering committee meeting, we had a presentation from Mike Levert, who is our outside evaluator. He came and reviewed all of our 1st year data from the surveys from the teachers and seniors. And then Jordan and I also pulled last spring's notes from the administrators meeting, as well as the strategic plan, the middle school and high school Gallup polls, the 8th grade survey, and came up with a draft of goals for the remainder of this year through from now till August 31st for our initiative. And so those have gone through 2 phases. And tomorrow we meet with the building principals to refine those further. And we will present the goals and the measures to our steering committee this month at our January 25th meeting. And then I did some alignment as well with those. We're trying to get a lot of it done now. So when we go back to revisit them and see how we've done, we'll have everything in place. So I've gone back and looked at which of the new life and career ready standards each of our goals is aimed to target. So be able to just keep that information available to people and continue sharing resources with teachers. Any questions?
Any questions for Jen? Thank you. And last, we've got Jim. Back there.
There he is. The man
From
behind.
Pretty sure, as you know, as the administrators go through the report, you basically add text to each one of their reports on the projects they're doing. I love Mr. West's confidence in the streaming situation. That's good. I do think we have that tackled after a very elaborate audio evaluation, including the master here in the high school for audio. So that's good. Our biggest thing has been security. Each year we have to do evaluations for our banks and for our insurance. And it's nice to look back on the former application and see where we've grown, what we've improved, what we've implemented. This year, MSMA has partnered up with a third-party vendor, giving us an initial evaluation from looking outside. So we've been working through their recommendations as well as their findings to make sure we can shore up our security system for our network and our users. And that's been good because my guy just hits the lever to make sure it checks the box. I like to learn about it. So my knowledge has grown much more than where I was even just 30 or 60 days ago. So that's nice to have. I've also been able to spend some more time in schools due to a short-term shortage in my department for staffing. Will be resolved within a week or two, but just some situations that come up. And I was only asked twice in the high school today if they could have the other gym. So I thought I was doing pretty good with the number of people that came in. Now, one of the problems was Mr. Tripp was asking me that from the time I came in the door to the time I got to the office. But so it is nice to get back and get to the foundation. I haven't worked with students directly as much as I used to. The graduating students this year, my first class at the high school when I started here. So now I know all the names, and I was just looking at some of the yearbook stuff in the back room, and it's fascinating for me, this youthful, my 8-year mark at the school, to see those faces, those names come through the system. It reminds us why we do. We had talked earlier about Skills USA. I will be a judge this year. I haven't been involved in skills for 20 years when I was a competitor, but I'll be doing inter-networking, which is very interesting to me to see other students come through and see where you end up. And then it got me thinking about my department and where else we are. So we see Mrs. Braley has escaped, it looks like, which is good for her, but media club and also student council. We have the esports coach sits within my department. We help out in the robotics club plus in the community. So it's nice to see, as Mr. Buki put, added value to our employees, not just coming in, doing your job, collecting your paycheck, but being involved in your community and your school. But just thought I'd point that out. Take any questions, any topics that have come up along the way.
Any questions for Jim?
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Now we have election of board officers, chair and vice chair.
Annually, this group needs to elect their chair and vice chair. So usually how this works is there'll be nominations and then go from there.
So
everybody's rushing to the front here.
I'd like to nominate Tom Foster to continue as chair if he's willing.
I'd be willing to continue.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
You got 3 seconds. So
3 seconds.
So that's a
Good for you, Tom.
Don't get too overconfident now.
Yeah, play it cool, play it cool.
My son often told me when you run unopposed, it's no guarantees.
Okay. So there you go. You've got is there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, then we'll close the nominations for chair and you can take a vote. And again, it will be a voice vote.
All right. So
Voice vote to support. Ms. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Claire,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Foster.
yes.
Okay. So there you go. Congratulations. So now you need a vice chair.
I would like to nominate Dave.
I second that.
Any other nominations? Hearing none. We will move with the vote. Ms. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Claire,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Hesitantly voted for himself, so that's good. All right, so you have a chair and vice chair.
You forgot me.
What's that?
We left out Scott.
Oh, Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
I heard you off and yes, I'm sorry.
You thought there was gonna be a big upset.
Yeah.
I can feel the love.
Right by that, so, well, you were the second. So all right.
So what we normally do after this is I ask people to just let me know what committee assignments they would like to have, and then I assign committees in the next meeting. And so usually what I get is everybody says, I'm good with what I've already got. And that's fine, but I do know we have some new board members, and I'll try to reach out to him to see what he likes. And we do have some openings, particularly in finance. We're looking for a member. And there was one other one that was.
You'll need one in finance, you'll need one new one in policy.
Curriculum always stands on that.
And curriculum could have another one as well.
Yeah, so if you're interested in taking on some new responsibilities, or just want something different, just let me know.
I need to excuse myself from this fire committee. I just don't have the time to commit to that extra meeting every month. My apologies. I'll miss enjoying it.
So if anybody would like to do Aspire, also let me know, okay? Great. Next, we have next we have an executive session to discuss the information relative to contract negotiations with Regional School Unit 25 Teachers Association. MRSA 4056D.
Now, we won't be taking any action from this executive session. The only thing that will happen will be an adjournment. And so we don't have to keep Mr. Morrow tied up, and we will.
Should we do calendar?
We should do calendar first, yes.
All right, so we'll do calendar before. Curriculum committee is set to meet on February 10th, 6 o'clock remote.
It's actually at the central office and remote. There's two options.
Perfect. Policy is February 8th. Yep. 5:30, central office.
Emphasis on that 5:30.
Yes, it's underlined and in bold.
Highlighted, bold. Those need some little flames around it. Be all set. Finance committee, February 15th at 5:30 right here. School board meeting, also February 15th at 6 o'clock. Facilities committee, February 10th, 4:30 at the central office. Aspire, January 25th, 6 o'clock.
I'm assuming that's 2022.
Yes.
It sure is. We're not going back in time for that one.
You can go back in time. I want to know your secret here. All right, calendar in and out.
Okay. So we need a motion to go into executive session in a second.
Well, I move that we go into executive session to discuss the information relative to the contract negotiations.
I second that.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of going into executive session under MRSA 4056D.
And I'll need a roll call, Mr. Foster.
We're gonna do one of those.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Claire.
Yes.
Ms. Rickman.
Yes.
All right. So you're officially in executive session at 7:58 PM.